Welcome to Roundabout Oxford, a podcast from the University of Mississippi Libraries.
In this episode, we hear from library faculty members about the research they presented at this year's conference of the American Library Association. Shelby Watson discusses the role of bibliometric studies in maximizing the usefulness of the library's collection. Later, Ashley Dees talks about making the library a partner for student success and retention. But first, Elizabeth Batte tells our own Joe Moody about one unique way the library is using the interests of students to engage them with library services through the popular role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons.
It's nice to be able to mix the academic with the creative.
Elizabeth Batte is the Outreach and Strategic Initiatives Librarian at the University of Mississippi.
The great thing about my job with Outreach and Strategic Initiatives is there's a lot that falls under that umbrella. And so I was working with our Idea Lab Makerspace director, Sarah Catherine Glass, and we have been talking about there's a very large D&D student organization at the university, and we felt like this was a group that had a niche interest, but they were a large group, and we felt like the Idea Lab had something to offer them in a way that we could bridge a relationship of outreach with them. And so that's a big part of what I try to do in my role, is finding ways to connect with student organizations and groups that we feel like we may not already have a relationship with. It doesn't hurt that Sarah Catherine and I are both D&D enthusiasts as well. So we got really excited about this idea. The group had reached out to Sarah Catherine before this conversation because they had wanted to use the 3D printer for some character models. And so as we started talking about this, we really started trying to figure out, how could we expand this to really connect D&D to the library. Thankfully, D&D interest and librarianship is a Venn diagram that has a big connection. And so we found 3 other colleagues who have played D&D, have experience with D&D, who are willing to work on this project with us. And so we were able to look at research that had been done of using the interest of students to get them interested in the library. And so basically it's about meeting students where they're at.
Along with Sarah Catherine Glass, those 3 colleagues were Alex Watson, Dr. Shelby Watson, and Brian Young. What they created was a one-shot campaign, meaning the game could be completed in one session.
The idea is that the D&D student organization will be able to come to the Idea Lab, play this one shot based on the library, learn about library services and skills playing D&D, and then because we're going to research this, there's actually going to be an assessment before and after they play the game to kind of assess how knowledgeable they are in D&D before the event and how knowledgeable they are in the library before the event, and then afterwards, do they feel more comfortable with D&D? Do they feel more comfortable with the library? And do they feel like they would more likely use the library's skills and services that they learned about? So the idea behind the one shot is your teacher has given you a last minute assignment, and so you have to go and find these specific details to accomplish your goal. So they'll go into the government information area, they'll go into the map room, they'll go into the Idea Lab, they'll go into the commons, there's the classroom areas down there, there's the research and instruction librarians, the circulation desk. There's so many different aspects of what they'll go and be able to do that, the great thing about the first floor and all the different services that it offers for students is that I potentially see some of these players coming to more than one of the games, and they would be able to go on a different adventure every time. And that's kind of the fun thing about D&D is that I do think that this one shot is going to be a very easy, replicable thing for other libraries to do. I really think that one of my favorite things about librarianship is collaboration and being able to collaborate with your colleagues, but also people at other libraries. So this project is kind of a big manifestation of that.
Batte elaborates on the plan for October in which the research team will play out the one-shot games with the group.
They're going to come to the Idea Lab after hours to be able to play the campaign. They're going to be able to do it 4 different times. And so we're going to see how long it takes them, because that's something that we need to do for our research as well, is to see D&D is not a short game. So no matter what type of library you work at, if you're going to host a D&D campaign, you're going to have an extensive amount of time that you can let them have at it. So
Of course, Batte and her team are looking for specific outcomes.
So our big outcomes, we really want to, we want the one shot to be successful. Like if they run into roadblocks and they don't feel like they can complete the mission, then, that's going to be a big problem. But we also are hoping to build a relationship with this very large student organization to be able to fine tune this. So it's something that we could release out to other librarians for them to be able to use in their libraries, whether that be public, academic, or school. And then also really being able to assess students' comfortability with the library in this type of format. So like, is this really making you more comfortable with the library, or was this just like a one-off game for you and you're gonna leave thinking like, oh, that was fun and that was it? Like, does it actually engage you to use the library more or not? It's an overarching campaign of mine that if we find what students are interested in and then can engage them that way about the library, it's going to be easier for them to engage with the library. We can't just keep telling them about services without relating it to them. This is just the first large scale, very focused niche target group that we're working with, and then we kind of want to build off of this, hopefully either expanding this project or looking at other organizations that we could do something similar with.
Batte says what makes the project unique is its focus on creativity.
It was really interesting to work with 3 of my very intelligent faculty colleagues who were very deep in research, and seeing this creative side of them come out. So I would say any listeners that are in the academic fields, especially those research faculty, to really think about ways to collaborate into a creative project. I think it really brings out the research in a whole different way.
Dr. Shelby Watson is an assistant professor in the Scholar Support and Data Services at the University of Mississippi Libraries, and she's been working on different bibliometric studies with Brian Young, the library collection strategist. Dr. Watson is here today to tell us all about it.
What we're really interested in knowing is, are those citations that they're referencing coming through the library or not? Do our holdings match what faculty need, in essence? And so we're looking at their papers and we're looking at what they're citing in their papers and trying to match that against our library collections. And then we're also looking at things like, are there particular journals that we publish a lot of papers in or that we cite from a lot? Are there particular publishers that we rely heavily on? When we talk about things like making decisions over which resources to give access to through our library, we have to look at certain journals and decide, is this useful enough to keep? Could that money be better spent elsewhere? And so we're developing things like a little tool that I created where our librarians can go in and they can check a particular journal and see if anybody from the University of Mississippi has cited that journal in the last 3 years to help make some of those decisions.
Their study involves some citation analysis. What does it mean? Well, they're looking at what faculty cites. Dr. Watson specifically talks about what they found looking at data from 2022.
What we found was that there were about 1,200 papers published from UM in 2022, which in total, altogether, had just over 76,000 citations. And what was really interesting to me was about a third of those citations, almost 27,000 of those citations, came from less than 100 journals. So we had 97 journals that had been cited more than 100 times. And then we had about 5,500 journals which had been cited 5 times or less. think about it in terms of a bell curve, this extremely long tail, right? You have a small number of journals that get a lot of citations, and then you have a lot of journals that get a couple of citations each. I think there were about 3,300 journals that have been cited once a piece. And so I'm not the collection strategist, but that makes me appreciate that I don't have his job, because then you have to think about, we've got this core collection of journals that we absolutely have to have, but then you've got a lot of other journals that somebody might use, even if they don't see much use, they're important to someone for their research. And so making those decisions is tough, and trying to predict what's going to be useful to faculty.
And the scope of their research actually involves not only the STEAM field, but they are really interested in the humanities.
We just got some data from institutional research that we're really excited about. There's another database that we want to use that we feel like has better representation in the humanities. That's been one of our big issues so far, is a lot of these databases that we've been using, like Scopus and Dimensions, they have really good coverage in STEM fields.
Yeah, in scientific field.
But humanities is so much more difficult to track down because it's so much more scattered.
And in our last part of this interview, Dr. Watson, who has a background in education research, explains all about her own personal research.
My dissertation work was looking at science teachers across Mississippi and trying to figure out which schools and districts were most affected by having underqualified science teachers, people who are in a classroom teaching science, but maybe they're not certified in science, or maybe they don't have a teaching certification, period. And trying to track that and map that and identify what factors cause those kinds of shortages in districts. So that's something else I'm working on right now that I'm hoping to present later this fall. I've applied for the Southeastern Association of Science Teacher Educators Conference.
Excellent.
That's one I've presented at before. It's a great group of people.
My name is Alex Watson, and I sat down with Ashley Dees, a research and instruction librarian at the J.D. Williams Library, to talk about research she and her collaborators have been doing about library instruction and student retention.
I'm Ashley Dees. I'm a research and instruction librarian here at the University of Mississippi Libraries. The poster that we presented at the ALA conference this year was the library as a partner for student success and retention.
They're hoping to collect similar data for upcoming years to deepen their analysis and hope demonstrate the library's value to the freshman experience. EDHE 105, the freshman year experience, is a course that many incoming University of Mississippi students take. Many of those students report to the library for an introductory session, which is where Ms. Dees and her collaborators began collecting their data.
So this is actually a project with two co-researchers, Melissa Dennis and Rachel Durham, and the UM Libraries has been working for a number of years with the Center for Student Success and First Year Experience. We provide library instruction sessions for many of their classes, in particular the EDHE 105 and 305, which is the first year experience course for freshmen and transfer students here, is the class that we work with the most. They have the most sessions and things like that. And we have been looking for ways to prove the library instruction value for instruction, and thought that this class and this partnership would be a good candidate to begin that exploration. So what we did is we basically had a roll sheet for each of the EDHE classes. The 105s in particular were part of this project. And when each library instructor would set up for their library session for the class, we would just have each student actually attending the class sign in on the roll sheet. The Center for Student Success and First Year Experience, they track student retention from fall to fall anyway. And we decided that the best way to track retention of students with the library session would be to use the roll sheet. Librarians have been trying to connect retention to library instruction sessions for quite some time. You can find a lot of people talking about it in the literature, but they haven't found a really good way to track retention. A lot of the literature will track students who could have had a library session, but not the individual students. So this was our attempt to track individual students who we know, not that their class was assigned to a library session, but these students were actually in the seats in the library session by the roll sheet. We will be able to track them from fall 23 through fall 24, so a full year. We were looking to see if the student was in the session for fall 23, if they were still here at the university as a student capacity for spring 24, and that's what we'll do for fall 24. So we were pretty excited by the findings. We ran a chi-square test of independence to examine the relation between student enrollment at during the spring 24 semester and attendance in an in-person library session within the EDHE course for the fall. So the test showed that there was a significant association between enrollment at for the continued semester and attendance in the in-person session. So from fall to spring, we showed a significant association. We don't know yet for fall. Fall to fall could show no association, or it could continue to show a significant association. I'm actually pretty excited to be able to get the fall numbers and find out what that year-to-year data will be.
Ms. Dees thinks that the results of the research show that freshman library instruction is an important piece of the student success puzzle.
I don't want people to think that we're saying the library is the piece for student retention. We're trying to make the case that the library is an important piece. There are many, many pieces, and each student is different, and different things help retain different students. But we do think that this proves that there's great value in library instruction, particularly for our freshman students who are new to the university and new to research in a university library and that experience.
They're hoping to collect similar data for upcoming years to deepen their analysis and demonstrate the library's value to the freshman experience.
Roundabout Oxford was created by Brian Corrigan, Taylor Fields, Abigail Norris Davidson, Alan Munschauer, Christina Streeter, and Alex Watson. Today's episode was produced by Brian Corrigan, Joe Moody, Harley Rogers, Carmen Sanchez Garcia, and Alex Watson, with musical contributions from Brian Corrigan and Gail O'Reilly. Thank you for listening to Roundabout Oxford.